Hello everybody, it's Keith. Help support the Northeast scene and declare yourself a member today. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or your podcast medium of choice. Rate us and leave a review. Every little bit helps. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It has every podcast episode plus other exclusive content. Like and leave a comment. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at TheNEScene. Also, continue to write us at northeastscene@gmail.com. We want to share your experiences as well. And now, here's the show. 3, 2, hello. That's too low energy. All right, 3, 2, hold on a sec. 3, got something in my tooth. 2, what a day. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Northeast Scene Podcast. This is Keith.
And Tommy.
How's everybody doing? Tommy, you got to tell the people where you're recording from right now.
I am in the front seat of my 2012 Honda Odyssey, parked in the driveway of my in-laws' house. While literally my kids are staring at me out the window. I just looked over like a minute ago, and they were all looking out the window, like pointing at me. So,
they must think this thing is crazy.
They don't get it. But
do they think it's your job or anything?
No, they think it's a funny hobby. Like they are like,
it is.
Oh, and they're not wrong. They're like, oh, that's what Daddy goes and talks with Mr. downstairs in the basement.
That's right.
But now it's out in the driveway in the car by himself.
So where are you right now?
I'm literally in the Poconos, at my in-laws' house. So both my mother-in-law and father-in-law are completely quarantined. Kelly's father just recently finished his last round of chemotherapy I want to say 4 weeks ago. And so he's been completely quarantined. So, and I hate to say this, but I think this might be her mom kind of intimated like this might be Dad's last Thanksgiving. So get your ass up here.
Oh, no.
So we're up here. So it's me and my kids and Kelly's parents and Kelly's sister, who I didn't think was going to show up, but she went and got a COVID test yesterday or 2 days ago. And she was like, I'm clean, so I'm coming up, because she works in a maximum security prison. So she's been exposed several times, but she's never gotten it. But she was like, I want to come up and see my nieces and hang out. Like, again, this might be Dad's last Thanksgiving.
Right.
So I want to be there. So Kelly was like, you can come, but I'm telling you right now, like, you got to get fucking tested. So she did. She went and gotten tested, and she literally showed up, because I know my wife, got out of the car, paperwork in hand, and walked up to my wife and was like, here it is. And she was like, good. All right, fine. Like,
that's good. I like that, because I wouldn't believe it unless I saw the paperwork.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I kind of didn't believe it until like when she was like, well, I'll get it. She's younger. She's like 27. Like, in my head, I'm going like, if I was 27, I'd be like, fuck you. I'm not getting a test.
Yeah, because I asked certain members of my family if they'd been tested recently, and certain members of my family were like, yeah, we're fine. I was like, oh, so that's a no.
Yeah.
So how was your Thanksgiving?
It was awesome. It was really, really nice. The one thing that's really nice about being up here is you are literally, and I put this there's a next door neighbor that's about 200 feet away. But other than that, we are in the woods.
Oh, that's awesome.
We went outside last night. I don't know what the weather was like down by you, but it was gorgeous out here last night. I mean, it was wet. It was
so warm.
But it was humid and damp, but it was like 60 something. So we were literally outside riding bikes and playing games, like doing sidewalk chalk, playing out in the driveway until like 7 o'clock. 'Cause they have a ton of lights up here. So they have a bunch of floodlights on the outside of the house. So we were outside playing until like almost 7 or 7:30. And it was kind of neat. It's like Kelly thinks it's hilarious. There were, and I'm not exaggerating, between like 8 to 10 deer just walk through their front yard. And
Whoa.
because they're not afraid of, like, they're not like skittish. Like they just wander through because they're in such a huge pack. They just kind of like glanced at us and we're like, oh, you're not a threat. Keep walking. And
Yeah, they're like, try something. Go ahead. There's 8 of us.
yeah, my daughters were like, we're all sitting there, like we're holding each other. We're like, look at how beautiful that is. Look at how tall they are. Look at how thin their legs are and how big. We were just like, and Kelly's sister and Kelly's mom are laughing at us. They're like, when you guys don't see deer? And I'm like, no. There's no deer on street road. Fucking, if there is, it's flattened. Like it's.
Oh, so we're talking about Thanksgiving. Yeah. Oh, and before I tell you about mine, folks, today on the show we have Respire, the post everything band from Toronto. They mix so many great elements of different things: black metal, orchestral stuff, emo, hardcore. If you haven't heard their discography, check it out. They've got a new album, Blackline, coming out this Friday, December 4th. Check it out. We spoke to them a couple weeks ago during election week when we still didn't know who was president. So there's a lot of great conversation, political stuff, music stuff, recovery stuff. It's got it all. So that's going to happen in a few minutes. But my Thanksgiving was not good.
All right, elaborate, because I always like to hear these stories, because you are like, we were talking about this prior to the show, but like you are super in tune with people's body language and social cues, and you are very in tune with things like that, and you can see when I can notice when you're around people, like you immediately project how uncomfortable you are. Like it's all over your face. It's all over your pocket. Like as soon as I see you and like, you're like, I don't like this situation. You don't have to say a word. I can just look at your face and you give me that sour, like, what the fuck look. So how did everything go?
It was not good. All right. So you know how you tell the story where when you go down this shore, you put on Promise Ring, Nothing Feels Good, and everyone's into it and it's a good time. This is what I envision for myself every time I get in a car. And it just doesn't work out because no one likes my music. No one cares about hearing it. And like, I have to temper my expectations. I put together a nice playlist that I think everyone will like, and it's not too crazy. And I envision like, oh, what's this song? Oh, that's cool. You know, none of that happens. So, you know, multiple people are on the phone at the same time in a car, and that's annoying to me, you know. So it's, I don't know, man, it's just, and then I'm turning the music down so people can be on the phone, and I'm turning it back up, and people are talking to each other and they can't, you know, so it's a whole thing. So I got upset. I lost my cool, and that didn't help things. So I have a plan now. I'm going to put on it when we're in the car. I'm going to put on a playlist I don't care about. That way I won't care. It's just background noise.
You have nothing invested in it.
Yes.
I think can I say this? I think your first mistake was making the playlist.
Why is that?
Just because now you have the expectation set of like, I have to, like, I want people to react well to this because you spent time and energy on it, and it's now like, fuck that. Like they're like on the phone having a full-on conversation with somebody else, or, you know, texting somebody, and they're like, you know, the music to most people is always background noise.
Right. No, I can't expect everyone to have this deep investment in it like I do, and that's my mistake. And I have created a method to get around that and not repeat that mistake in the future. And listen, family just can be irritating, you know? Now, don't get me wrong, I love them. There were good moments, but I don't know, man. What upsets me the most is when family feel comfortable saying things they shouldn't say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm talking to someone, and they're asking me about video games, and because they don't know anything about video games, and someone they know is into video games and streamers and all that stuff. Okay, this is somewhat of an area of expertise for me. So I'm explaining, and then this person out of nowhere is like, "Oh, you have time for all this, but you can't pick up a guitar?" And then the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, you know, I'm doing a podcast that a good amount of people listen to. I have a full-time job. I'm studying for an incredibly hard exam I've got in a couple weeks. I'm in a relationship, there's a child involved, so there's responsibility there. But I should sit alone in my room and play guitar because what? Because you think I should?
Because you
Did
think
what?
you have the imagined amount of time to be able to do that.
Yeah. So was I not in a band 3 years ago that I struggled for a year and a half to try to keep together? Did I not put out a record? Will there not be a musical project again in the future? Is there a music industry right now?
Yeah.
And this is coming from someone who plays 0 instruments. So that's what gets me the most upset is when someone just offers up an opinion that no one asked for and it's not helpful. Like, now, don't get me wrong. I'm not an angel and I used to be a menace all the time. But like, would you walk up to someone at a party and be like, "Oh, this music is shitty. Why did you put this on? This is bad."
Yeah, this can
Now, all right, at age 38 now, would you do that to somebody?
Absolutely not. But
that didn't happen. That didn't happen. I'm just using that as an example of offering up your opinion when nobody asked for it.
Was this person drinking?
Possibly.
People tend to get a little loose-lipped about things like that, especially family, when they have something that they want to say. And, there's that old in vino veritas, within wine lies the truth. So people start saying some things that they normally wouldn't say when they get a couple drinks in them. And then you're like, you know what? I wish you didn't say that.
Yeah, and that's part of what was going on probably. And I'm not going to fault people for that because I used to show up to Thanksgiving dinner already blasted and go from there.
Oh, no, that was my go-to move. Like when I would show up at my mother's half in the bag and then be like, let's start drinking. And then, of course, like my sisters are all drinkers. So they would be like, fuck yeah, let's start. And I mean, like, they would start doing shots. And my mom would be like, stop doing that. Don't drink liquor like that. It's too fast. Stop doing that. And then, before that, we're like, all right, well, now let's start eating. And now we've eaten. So let's start drinking more because now I've started to lose my buzz because I've eaten too much.
Yeah, like I would walk in the door mid-conversation. It was just like I was the Tasmanian devil. It was bad.
Oh, yeah. And that's the worst is like, so we do non-COVID years. I have to qualify that. We do 2 Thanksgivings. So we do like a small Thanksgiving with my mother and like a couple of my sisters. And then we do like a large scale Thanksgiving, which is all of my cousins, my mom's aunts and uncles. Like there's probably on the low end, like 45 to 50 people there. We do it out in my cousin's house out in Huntington Valley, and she's very well off. She has a beautiful, huge home. She has a big, huge, like yard in the back. It's unbelievable. But I mean, it's so much fun. But it's also one of those times where, like a lot of those people in that side of the family have very high anxiety jobs and they're off for a few days in a row. So they start having a couple drinks. And then the next thing you know, people are saying things like, I really never liked you because, and then they start saying shit that you're like, holy shit. I didn't think you were going to say that. Like we were in, this is one of the funniest ones is, and Kelly will tell this story better than I ever can, but I just had met Kelly and she invited me to she had needed a date for a wedding. So I went to her cousin's wedding. Her cousin, who is literally got a perfect score on his SAT, like genius, very accomplished attorney. We get in the van, leaving the wedding, going back to the hotel where everybody's kind of staying, and they have the bar blocked off so we can all go to the bar. We get in the car, and this big 15 passenger van, and he's like, "Oh, Kelly's here. Oh, Tommy's here. Blah 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 blah." And starts talking to us, and without like maybe 10 seconds pass by and it's absolute silence. He leans over the seat and very drunkenly goes, Kelly, you're my least favorite cousin.
Oh, wow.
The whole van erupted in laughter. Thank God it was received like that. I was just dying.
Here's the thing. I don't drink anymore, so I remember everything.
Oh yeah.
So when I'm reacting certain ways to certain things and everyone is like perplexed, like, oh, why is he making such a big deal out of this? It's because I remember everything and you remember nothing, you know?
Yeah, it's one of those. What's that? That's like one of those things. There used to be like a saying about the Irish, like they never forget. They never forget an argument or something like that. I forget what the actual quote is, but it's
I must be 100% Irish then.
you just remember every little dig and detail that's anyone's ever thrown at you.
Yes. All right, so we're going to talk to Respire now. Here's our conversation. Enjoy it. All right, folks, we're here now with Egin Kongoli and Rohan Lilauwala from Respire. Welcome. Woo!
Yeah. What's up?
Gentlemen, how we doing?
We're doing great. It's good to be on here. Good to have a chance to chat with you guys.
Yeah, welcome. I got turned on to your band sometime this year, I think. Tommy sent me a track from Denouement, the first track, Bound. Now that is just an incredible song. I was instantly gripped by it. Have you guys ever been so gripped by a song, like the first song on a record, that it just takes you months and months and months to get to the rest of the record?
I think I don't know if Rohan feels the same way, but I'm a very big believer in like a full record listen.
Yes.
I think even in Respire, our process has always been to create like, a good listen from front to end. So I usually take my music all in track one to the last track sort of deal. So I don't know. I don't think so.
That's never happened to you. What about you, Rohan?
No, I think I'm the same as Egin. I think if a song hits me that hard, I'm listening to the whole record right after, and putting that record on repeat. And maybe I'm hitting getting a few extra plays in on that first track if it's really gripping me. But I'm listening to the whole record too. I want the full experience.
I'm really into playlists now. Like I do these really long yearly playlists on Spotify, and I'll drop a lot of bands in there. So sometimes it takes me a while to cycle back around to the full album, but I always do. And listen, your guys' discography. I mean, whew. First of all, let me say, I'm glad that you're on the show. We were going to have you on a couple months ago or weeks ago, but there was a little delay. We're going to get to that. But now we're here and we're doing it. So let me ask you guys, all right, so right now, the night we're recording this, we don't know who the new American president is. They're still counting the votes. How in tune are you guys with what's going on in America? Are you guys keeping an eye on the election? And for folks who don't know, Rohan and Egin are from Toronto, correct?
Yes, yeah, we're both immigrants. We're both Rohan's from India, and I am born in Albania, but I grew up in Japan. So we definitely have a really close eye on American politics and politics in general. Canada is very close to America, both I think socially, culturally, and politically, and whatever happens in America tends to have kind of ripple effects here. Mm-hmm. So aside from kind of personal, political interests, there's also, I think, pretty great cultural importance in Canada. I think, like, if you were to look at Canadian news today, almost everything was talking about the American election and interviewing people on the streets about how they feel about the American election. So it's a big part of life here as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I went to Toronto for the first time in, I think, 2013, and I expected it. I don't know. I guess I just had different expectations, but it was not too unlike being in an American city.
Mm-hmm. Toronto, for sure, especially, I think, really feels, I guess, in its urbanism, pretty a lot closer to America. Rohan is actually in Texas right now. So
really, where at, Rohan?
Yeah, so I'm in Austin right now. My partner lives here, so I decided to come down run into the burning building, and just see what life is like on the ground right now.
What's the feel down there?
I mean, I think that we had a little kind of outdoor election viewing party that was COVID appropriate, mm-hmm. and similar to our party 4 years ago in Toronto. The mood started off quite hopeful, and then got more somber as the night went on. So I don't know. I think people are just generally stressed. I think, and I'm sure it's the same in many communities in across the U.S. where that are home to people who might be marginalized in some way, or feel like their position in society is unstable or at risk. I think it's just a overwhelming sense of anxiety and fear for what might come next, and the state of American democracy.
For sure, and it's just really such a bummer. I'm overwhelmed by it, by the news, the divisions among people. There's a lot of arguing, even among people who are supposedly on the same side, and I just can't wait for this thing to be done. I do hope Biden wins. He's not my number one pick. Like, I'm not a Trump guy. I'm really into really progressive candidates. I was a big backer of Bernie Sanders, but I mean, the election is what it is, and I hope Biden takes it and that this country can get back to some semblance of normal over time.
Yeah, I think we all agree. I think that our politics are probably on the definitely more on the progressive side than Biden too. But it's easier to win fights against people that at least have some common ground with you.
For sure. So I'm going to take it back a little bit. Let's figure out where everyone came from and how they got where they are. Let's start with Egin. So you said you grew up in Japan?
Yes, yeah. So I was born in Albania, kind of right around the end of their communist rule, and when there was kind of that explosion of people, just leaving, my parents fled for education purposes and just life, and then that kind of brought us to Canada in 2001. So I've been here for a very long time, so definitely a Canadian by now.
So, Egin, did you grow up speaking Albanian, English, and Japanese?
Just Albanian and Japanese. I learned English coming here.
Jesus, wow. That is unbelievable. That is absolutely fascinating. Like, that's so cool. I'm always fascinated when someone, like, my mother speaks English and Italian. I'm always kind of blown away when I hear her pick up the phone and speak. I'm like, holy cow, how do you know that stuff? Like, it's unbelievable to me, like, that people pick up languages so quickly. It's just what a beautiful gift to have.
I love it. And when you're exposed to a bunch of different cultures, living in a bunch of different countries, you just kind of pick it up. Like my girlfriend speaks Spanish, Italian, some French, and English. So she's been all over.
Polyglot. Yeah, that's a lot of languages.
Oh yeah. So Rohan, what about you? Tell us about where you grew up and how you ended up in Canada.
Yeah, so I grew up in Bombay, India, now known as Mumbai, but Bombay forever in my heart. And my family moved to Mississauga, which is a suburb of Toronto. It's actually I think North America's largest suburb. It's like 800,000 people now. Wow. Back when I was a young teen. So like Egin, I've also been in Canada for quite a while. It's been over almost 20 years for me now. But yeah, and then I ended up going to school in Toronto, university in Toronto. So I got out of the suburbs as soon as I could. I was I grew up in a city. I was right downtown in Bombay. So I had to get out of the suburbs. So I fled to Toronto as soon as I could.
Nice. So how did you guys meet?
So we met on MySpace.
Yes. This must have been 2003, 2004.
I think 2008, actually.
Oh, shit.
It was like the swan song of MySpace.
Yeah. That was when the big migration happened to Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think only musicians and bands were using MySpace still in 2008. And yeah, I think either Rohan messaged me or I messaged Rohan just out of kind of a similarity in music tastes in 2008. And then our mutual bands had a split back in 2010, and we played our first show together in the same year. So and this actually also includes Darren, who's also the third guitar player in Respire. So we've all kind of known each other for a decade now, more or less within the Toronto DIY hardcore and emo scenes. We've incestuously had several bands with each other's members, probably about 4 bands to count. And then in 2013, we came together and decided to make a big band full of all of us.
Nice. So what is the scene like in Toronto? Now, Tommy and I grew up in Bucks County, which is just outside Philadelphia. So we had our own little scene we carved out in Bucks County, which was just, kids going to shows in VFW halls, 10 bands on the bill, all different genres, that type of thing. And then you had Philadelphia was a big, big hardcore city, but it was super awesome, but also super dangerous. There was a lot of violence. There was a lot of bad stuff going on, a lot of gang activity, that type of thing. So set the stage for us in Toronto.
So I think that in 2008, we all came from different parts of the scene. Like Egin was an indie kid. I don't know if I'll give you a chance to talk about that, Egin, if you want.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, like all of us, music was a really big sort of empowering and changing, discovery when I was a teenager. And I owe a lot of my involvement to the kind of general Canadian independent music community and scene of the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of after a couple years after, Arcade Fire and Broken Social Scene and bands like that kind of broke out even into America. Toronto was kind of like a haven for local underground independent music, and there were like, all ages shows all over the place, and like churches and warehouses and all these different alternative kind of venues. So for the kind of better part of the mid later 2000s, that was like a really thriving and welcoming community in Toronto that sort of fell in on itself maybe around like 2010, 2011. And I personally kind of the shows stopped happening as much. The people who were organizing stopped organizing the festivals and shows and things like that. And right around that time was when I kind of just stumbled into the DIY punk scene in Toronto, which really had the same sort of ideals and welcoming aspect. And I kind of dove headfirst into punk and hardcore at that point, which is where I also met Rohan.
Yeah, I was playing in like playing weirdo post hardcore with like, twinkly guitars in a band in Mississauga where I went to high school, and I feel like we were not very good looking back, but the songwriting was good, but the execution was pretty poor. Listening to some of the old stuff, but so I used to come to Toronto for shows once in a while, and then we started getting booked on some Toronto shows, and I was like, whoa, this is so much more exciting. Like there's people doing weird stuff. It's more I can see people that might be kindred spirits, and it took a little while to kind of get into the community, but I think that once we did, it was really great. There was a bunch of really awesome DIY venues in Toronto, in the early 2010s that were, really, really great, welcoming places that you could do, underground art stuff that weren't super cost prohibitive to book. But then over the last kind of 10 years, Toronto's really gentrified. It's really become kind of a place where rich people across the world bring their money. And along with that, has come the closing down of many really awesome venues. I lived in Darren and I, who's the other guitar player in Respire. We lived in a house in the West End of Toronto between 2012 and 2014 called Scramden Yards. And we probably had about 30 shows there over 2 years. And we had some pretty cool bands. Like we had like Caution Children, Foxing, Saddest Landscape, Football, etc. So we had some cool bands, and our landlord ended up selling the house. And I remember in 2014, thinking, who the hell is going to pay $850,000 for this piece of shit house? And then now I'm like, $850,000, what a steal!
Yeah.
There's definitely like a mirroring in the kind of DIY hardcore scene as the kind of the indie scene too, where like Rohan said, when we first kind of got introduced to those shows, it was a handful of venues, a handful of promoters, and like a pretty close knit community of folks that were friends and roommates and housemates. And over kind of the expansion of Toronto and the gentrification and everything, the shows got too big and too rowdy and too many people, and even the DIY scene itself kind of got like diluted, and with venues shutting down and everything, kind of ended up in a weird place where it didn't have very many places to go.
So what's it like net? Well, I mean, all of music is shut down now, but let's say this time last year, like where's the place to go to see a show? Like in Brooklyn, we still got St. Vitus. I live pretty close to that. Shit, I'm kind of out of touch, to be honest. I was really connected in Philadelphia. I knew all the venues. I could walk into a show and pretty much know at least one person. And then I moved up to New York City, and I don't know. I just struggled with drugs and alcohol for a really long time, so I was just always kind of out of it. I went to a lot of shows from 2012 to 2017, but I don't remember most of them. And I cleaned up my act, and I don't know. I'm really into post rock, post hardcore, hardcore. A lot of the metallic stuff. So I'll go check stuff out when it's happening. But sadly, that's not happening right now. So what's it like? What's it like in Toronto? Pretending that COVID doesn't exist. Let's say last year.
Toronto's really sweet because it's like being one of the biggest countries in Canada. We get almost every touring band actually stops in Toronto. Mm-hmm. If you're sort of like in other cities in Canada, you're definitely not going to get as high a volume of cool out there acts, including post rock and non-traditional or like independent punk or whatever. So we get pretty lucky as far as like major shows go. Rohan, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I think that we're kind of in the same boat as Keith, where maybe we're, went to more shows earlier in our 20s, and I think we're all a little bit older now. And with getting a little bit older comes more responsibilities and less time to go out and go to shows. But Egin and I have been putting on shows along with our friend Vanessa under the banner of New Friends DIY for the past few years, which has been really great because we've been there was a moment in probably 2018 or so where we realized that there was no one really doing the shows that we wanted to see in Toronto. Our friends were hitting us up and asking us to do shows, and no one was doing the kind of stuff we wanted to see. So, we decided that, hey, we should do these shows, but also we watched, solo promoters time and time again kind of, decide to start booking shows and then just burn out because there's just too much work for one person to do. So we decided to kind of do it in a way where we could support each other and lighten the load. So that's been really great. We've been doing an annual festival in August called New Friends Fest. Last year we had City of Caterpillar, Majority Rule, Lord Snow. This year we had Loma Prieta, Dangers, a couple other bands. I can't remember all of them booked, but obviously it didn't happen. So that's been really great. It's nice to be able to book bands that I want to see and like give them a reason to come to Toronto. But also kind of try and stay engaged in the scene a bit.
That's great. And yeah, that's what I've learned is if you want to do something, if you want to make something happen, you just got to do it. Like when I was playing in bands in Brooklyn, I mean, I had friends that were playing shows almost every night of the week, and I'd be like, hey, can you get me on a show? Hey, and they just wouldn't help me at all. So I was like, if I want to get this done, I got to do it myself. So I would book shows for us. And same thing with this podcast. You know what I mean? We learned how to do this shit remotely when COVID hit. And we have the bands we like on. We do it exactly the way we want to do it. We produce it ourselves. and it's a lot of fun. It keeps us connected, and it's a great way to connect with the artists we love when shows aren't happening.
That's actually, this is funny. That's how I found you guys, was the video somebody had posted of the New Friends DIY, the New Friends Fest from 2019. And I was listening to something on YouTube. I forget what it was. It might have been something like Suffocate for fuck's sake, or Envy. I forget which one it was, but it was
Both great choices.
Right, but it was also like it was like, if you like this band, you might also like this, and it was in the recommended videos, and I was like, oh, that's cool, because the way the thumbnail is, it's literally just you two, but when I clicked on the video, I was like, oh, they have trumpet players, they have someone playing violin or viola. I was like, I'm down. Let's check this out. And I was just blown away. I was like, this is amazing. Yeah, you guys sound so tight, and you take everything from so many different genres that I love. It's like, if you guys haven't listened to this band, it's like the best.
You really need to.
They're like the best of like screamo and black metal and like the orchestral kind of like broken social scene, Godspeed. It's just phenomenal music, and it's just really well put together. It's very thought out, and on top of that, very politically minded. You guys are very, very like, it's so smartly done. I love like everything about it. I'm like you said, with the listening to the album, it's like, the first track is amazing, but like, it's one of those things that it's experiential. Like, you just keep you keep going with it, and you keep getting something. I've listened to the album at least 5 times all the way through. It's just so great. And then somebody posted something not that long ago with, I don't know if you guys did it or not, just the instrumental tracks from one of the
accompaniment
yes.
memorial. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I put that all the time when I'm eating dinner or we're cooking dinner, and I just put it on a little Bluetooth speaker, and my daughters are always like, Daddy, what is this? I'm like, it's a band from Canada. They're super awesome. Like, and they're always, because my kids are little, they're like 6. So they're always like, oh, this is nice. I like this. I'm like, well, I'm glad we're listening to the instrumental, because I'm pretty sure you wouldn't like, they don't like anything with screaming in it. They haven't got
Precisely. We got to convert them.
Yeah, you start with one, you then you move to the other.
Evelyn is slowly, I was listening to something the other day, and she was like, I like that guy's voice, and I was like, oh, okay. It was she just thought it was neat. We were listening to I was listening to Coalesce in the car on the way to I skateboard every Saturday and Sunday morning with my daughters. They build a brand new concrete skate park near my house. So I take my little girls to go skate, and I was like, I wanted to listen to something. I like to get like kind of amped up before we go there, and I was like, I want to listen to something heavy. So I put on Coalesce, and she was just like, what is with his voice? And I was like, it's this guy, Sean Ingram. He's got a very unique style of singing. And she's like, it sounds like it's just his throat making noises. And she was so interested by it. And I was like, yeah, sweetie, it's really good. But I played the beginning of, oh my word, I can't believe I can't think of the name. But like the one where he's like, what more do you want from me? Like, it's just his vocal track. And there she was like, this is kind of scary, but also engaging. She was like, I like this. And I was like, look, now you got your first taste of it. This is good to go. This is what we need.
There's your entry. So we're talking about Respire. That is the band that Rohan and Egin are in, and it's amazing. And I like how it's described as post everything. It's just such a succinct, perfect summation of the band.
Thank you.
we had to workshop that for a while.
Did you like purposefully come up with that? Like, we're post everything.
Yeah. I mean, I think usually when we try to explain this band, it's like you just end up being like, it's like post rock, post metal, like post black metal. It's just a lot of post blah. So we figured, just put it all into one.
Yeah, it's just post everything. I love that. It's so like, I think one of the things about your guys' sound is that you guys, especially some of the longer tracks, like it goes from stuff that's unbelievably heavy to things that are extremely black metal influenced to things that are just absolutely beautiful and sublime. It's just, you guys do a very, very wonderful mix of like those three kinds of things, and you go so gracefully from one to the other. It's a really nice listen. And nowadays when, somebody's like, oh, check out this new band, I'm like, okay. And then I hear it and I'm like, oh, that sounds like 40 other things I've heard before. I get it. Like I've heard a band like this. I've heard a dozen bands like this. You guys are the first band in a long time that I've heard and went, that's new. That's fucking brand new. I've never heard anybody do something like that. And that, like, again, if you haven't checked out their live performance, that live performance from New Friends Fest you have, I believe, 2 trumpet players, a violin player, 3 guitar players, a bass player, and a drummer. Am I right on that?
I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is so tight, and so like the beginning is literally just this slow build to literally like the old style black metal blast beat. It's fucking awesome. It's so great.
Thank you.
Thanks for the kind words.
So let's talk about the formation of this band. Now, it's something like 10 people. So do you add people as time goes along, or do you get 10 people together and say, like, all right, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this?
No, I think that's very rare. We kind of have, I guess, a core membership of 3 guitars, bass, drums, and violin. And then we just kind of bring people in as we can and as it allows. I mean, I think we're really lucky in that we have a lot of really, really talented friends who are, in some cases, professional musicians. They're when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, they're playing, gigs every night and, playing with large bands and like stadiums and stuff, and they still come and help us out. So I think it's more of a, we have kind of our core membership where we get together as often as we can, and we write and we jam and we tour, and then we have our extended family of additional instruments, which is stuff like saxophone, some of the trumpet stuff, who we bring in for the record. Sometimes we're bring them in for some bigger live shows if they have the time, if they can make it out.
It's definitely like an open door policy of maybe 10 to 12 people that is this kind of extended family. When we first started the band, it was 3 guitars, bass, drums, and a trumpet player. So that was kind of where it started, and then he went off to play with his other bands more so, which is totally fine. And then we came to start playing with Eslin, our violin player. So yeah, I mean, it's a core group, like Rohan said, and then for the record, we generally kind of, I guess, score everything out for guitars and bass. Being so many kind of notes flying around, we try to make sure there's enough space for everybody and everything. So when we kind of leave the pre-production aspect and go to the recording, it's a matter of talking to all those people in the extended family, seeing who's available and who's interested in being part of the new record, sitting down with them, and then just kind of workshopping parts beforehand. And then also a significant part of denouement and that recording process was pretty improvisational when it comes to the saxophones and some of the other horn additions and things like that. So we generally like to let our friends play in the moment and just keep recording and build songs together, sort of piece by piece.
I love that. It's like a whole collective. You got different people doing different things, and whoever's there, whoever can be a part of it, will be a part of it in whichever way they contribute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had for example, Jordan Mason on denouement, and Jordan is like a extremely accomplished indie folk singer in Toronto, and I had been a fan for many, many years, and I just randomly ran into them on the street, gushing about their music, and then got them on the record. And on this record, Blackline, we have our friend who we toured with before, and he lives in Sweden. So, we're slowly starting to kind of expand the family internationally. Maybe we'll have somebody from like Suffocate for Fuck's Sakes on the next record, or we'll start doing like guest features.
Nice. Yeah, and Tommy discovered the band and he sent me the track Bound, like I was mentioning in the beginning of the podcast. And I was just so instantly gripped by it. I threw it right on my Spotify playlist for the year and I was listening to it over and over and over again. And that happens to me. I'll get so hung up on one song that it takes me a minute to circle around to the rest of the album, which is what happened to me. And I believe there's like this connection in the music because like that a certain energy went into that song, that like I can feel it because I went through something similar. And so when I read about Bound and I read that it was written about the final moments of someone in active addiction, I was surprised and I wasn't surprised because like I was instantly grabbed by that song. And that's something I've gone through fairly recently. I struggled for a really long time with drugs and alcohol. And around 2017, I got my act together. And I find that, that when I'm so gripped by a song like that, there's some connection. There's similar feelings or there's similar influences or some kind of connection.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely. And it was actually the same year that I also got sober. So
wow.
Congrats to both of us.
Yes.
But yeah, man, I mean, Denouement was like all the music was written right before I went to rehab in 2017. And then I checked in November or December. And then like I got out with lyrics and we were in studio recording the songs maybe like 2 weeks after I got out. So I think now, yeah, it's kind of weird because I tend to leave lyrics sort of probably later than I'd like.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's funny when the energies sort of line up anyways. And like, we were writing the songs before recording them for maybe about a year. So it was all sort of during that process of trying to figure out my life and figure out, all this past and all this trauma and like heaviness and what I wanted to do moving forward, whether I wanted to, keep going through this cycle, or if I actually had it in me to break away and, believe in myself enough to do something different. So yeah, I mean, I definitely really appreciate the resonance and the fact that
that's so strange and it's so awesome. And were you a mess when you were recording this album? Because when I got out of rehab, or I was in detox for a week, I was a mess. My emotions were all over the place. I would cry at almost every song or every movie, and Denouement is just such a roller coaster ride of emotions. I mean, you must have been all over the place when you were recording that thing.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I was away for a whole month, not seeing my friends, not seeing my bandmates, my girlfriend, my parents. So even just that was like a pretty raw experience, and a lot of introspection. And then being cut out back into the wild to record a record definitely can be a little hard. I mean, and I wasn't free of it wasn't like I was, out of the rehab and just like, on the complete right track right away. So obviously, it was a struggle, and continued to be a struggle a little bit, after that, but it was a really healing process. And I think, that's kind of fundamentally why we do what we do and why we play in a band like Respire and play the kind of music that we play is, because it has this, really healing sense of catharsis and empowerment in talking about your problems and in radical vulnerability and just putting yourself and all the shitty things you might think about yourself out there as this thing that I've been able to grow past and change from. So now looking back at it, it's I appreciate how honest I was able to be, but I also am very proud of the progress and proud of it as like a point in time, I guess.
Yeah, and I did a similar thing. I went to detox, got out, lasted a couple months, went right back to what I was doing, and it got worse than ever. Then I finally got clean for good, and I started recording an EP, I don't know, 6 months later, and that EP ended up being about the whole experience, getting clean, relapsing, getting clean again, and all the thoughts and feelings I experienced. It was a really healing experience. And yeah, I stumbled along the way and I really had to learn. And I've grown a lot in the last, I don't know, 3.5 years since I was able to leave all that behind. And so Egin, what do you do now to keep yourself in check? Like me, there's certain things I'm involved. There's certain things I'm involved in that keep me straight and keep me helping others and all that type of stuff. And I always say this on the podcast: if anyone out there has similar struggles, email me. I'll tell you what worked for me. But Egin, what do you do to keep yourself centered?
I threw myself into music, man. I mean, really, right around the time that I got out and got clean was when we started New Friends DIY. When we started, running festivals, and right before I went in was like our first European tour, and that was just a really, life-changing and humbling experience to be able to meet people so far away that also really kind of get it, and resonate with what you're trying to do and put out. So I left, and for the first couple years, just try to focus as much as I could on myself and the things that actually gave me value and pleasure in life, which was music and community around music, and my friends who've stuck through me and all that. So yeah, for a while it was music. Now I'm in law school, so my life is a whole new world of hell. But but yes, I keep busy.
So were you able to just stop now I don't know if you still do anything or not, but let me ask you this. Are you able to manage it by staying active in law school and music and, just keeping yourself busy? Like I could not stop no matter what. I would try to substitute, I'll stop doing this and I'll just do this. Like nothing worked. Nothing worked. It always brought me back to the lowest, darkest place. And I had to really get involved in some different shit and really change my life around to stop. Like, how do you manage it? Do you just stay busy and you're okay, or is there still temptation?
I mean, yeah, of course, there's always temptation, and there's always dark sort of self-doubt and all that energy, which I think really, is triggering to want to escape. But I mean, I think therapy is always a really big thing, or has been a big thing, and really trying to, always figure out what my actual values are and what's actually of importance to me. Not something that, comes down from society or from my parents or from somewhere else, but what I think gives me that joy and that value. And, it's just been, I guess, a process of trying to be honest with myself and trying to give myself the things that actually matter to me. I think for a while I was in a place where I didn't know what I was supposed to be or who I was supposed to be, or what was expected of me, and I just lost myself in a decade plus of just trying to be someone else or trying to fit in another way that wasn't right for me. So I mean, it's obviously helps to have a support system. It helps to find friends that are able to be sober with you. It helps to find those things that are actually of importance and just do them, and let yourself enjoy the things that you enjoy. And also when things get hard, let yourself be sad and try to learn from the things that happen instead of just kind of being, passively reacting or letting things overwhelm, which, I mean, things always overwhelm.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a work in progress, right?
For sure.
These days are harder on addicts than most days are. So it definitely isn't easy, but it's been all right. Just in that, like, I mean, I can't honestly even recognize my life like 4 years ago compared to what I live now, how I live now. So,
Right? It feels like a bad dream. I can't believe I was able to sustain what I was doing for that long.
mhm,
My life is just completely different now. We were talking about the responsibilities now. I have a girlfriend who has a 14-year-old daughter. Uh,
mhm.
we have 2 cats. We're talking about moving in eventually. I mean, there's just all these adult responsibilities that I never imagined that I would have. And, 4 years ago, I was living in a house with 3 roommates who are 10 years younger than me. And, well, it was a very dark scene. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I guess I like, really believe in change, and I believe in personal growth, that we are all capable of. I think, you know, society kind of tends to beat us down and tell us that, as an addict or as a weirdo or as a freak or an immigrant or whatever you might be, that you're not enough, or that, it's the good things in life aren't necessarily for us or whatever, and I think, it requires work, but we can kind of, divorce ourselves from all those expectations and all
Mhm.
these kind of, things to figure out what it is that really matters for us. And like I said, yeah, it's just a continuous project.
For sure. So, question for Rohan: was Egin a huge pain in the ass in the band and in general before he got his act together?
Oh man, I met Egin in like 2008, and they were always trying to get me to be in a band, and I was like, no, you're far too irresponsible. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely times when we had to be a babysitter, and it was definitely annoying. I mean, obviously, we did it because we love them, and they're part of the family. But there's definitely nights when we're out and I have to turn to Darren and be like, "Hey, keep an eye on Egin because I can see making sketchy phone calls or wandering off into the distance with some people, like random people we don't know." So yes, it was a massive pain in the ass, but I'm glad that things are much better now, and it's nice to see your friends grow and heal, and have move past the things that bring them down and wreak havoc on their lives. So I think we're all proud of Egin. So I think that's how we can put it.
I love that you guys stayed friends, that you're still in a band together. Because I've lost friends. I've had friends who died. I've been in several bands that have fallen apart in part due to my behavior. Oh, here's a question, Rohan. Would Egin ever pull the move where you'd be in like a different city playing a show somewhere and he would just disappear like for the night? That was my thing. I would wander off like looking for the goods. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think that ever actually happened because we knew that we could not let that happen.
That's really nice.
So yeah, Egin knew that wasn't an option.
Yeah, there would be times where I'd be like, no, like we're in Berlin, like we have to go dance, we have to go party.
Yeah.
And then they, would just be like, okay, fuck, I guess we're coming with you. Like, I guess we're not going to bed yet. Like, all right.
Yeah, we divvied it up. So I think there was like, a night when like Ben went out with you in Vienna. And then like there was another night when like I went out with you in Montreal because I was like, everyone else was tired. And I was like, all right, someone's gotta be the chaperone.
I love that. It's literally like a family. Because if I had a friend who I had to put that much effort into, I'd be like, "Fuck this!" Like, I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, I am very lucky that I found a group of people that I could actually rely on as support. But I mean, like you said, you lose people or people just fade away, or you just have to cut certain people off.
Right.
And I'm very happy that Respire didn't cut me off.
That's great. Yeah, and I have my party friends who I had in New York. I don't really see them anymore for obvious reasons. I had a good friend who died of an overdose a couple years ago, so he's always in my thoughts. And any friends that I made pre getting into the darkest days of drugs, I still have because I don't have that association with them. You know what I mean? They're just people that I don't necessarily associate with drugs. So I got into extreme music, hardcore, during like the metallic crossover boom of the late 90s. So your Coalesce and your Botch and your Converge and your Dillinger Escape Plan and all that. So I was heavily into that kind of stuff. So the crossover sounds are really my bread and butter. They always end up being the bands that I like the most. And Respire has elements of everything, like we were talking about. It's heavy, it's dark, it's beautiful, it's cinematic, it's got it all. So what kind of stuff was everybody into when we're putting this band together?
I think that the kind of the thread that probably unites us all is like we're all into screamo, emo, that kind of stuff. I think that's what has united us. But I think we all have our our quirks and eccentricities of what we like. Like Egin's was really into the mid 2000s indie. I'm a big fan of like post rock.
Yes.
Travis, our drummer, loves metalcore. David Van growing up was like Poison the Well. And then, Darren, when he was, a teenager, was playing metalcore, but he was also like into like In Flames and stuff. So like he's got a little bit more shred in him than the rest of us do. And then our violin player, grew up basically her entire life playing classical music. So I think that we kind of draw from a pretty deep well of potential influences. And I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head earlier when you said that we sound new, and I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make music that's not the same as other stuff. We want to put our own stamp on something. And I think that as a lot of people who play in bands will probably understand. When you're writing songs, you have a tendency to subconsciously rip off bands that you like.
Yes.
And then you play it for like 10 minutes and you're like, oh, this is awesome. And then you're like, oh no, it's literally the exact same riff as another band.
Yeah.
But luckily, when there's so many people who are bringing their own perspectives, that transforms really quickly into something new. And I think that's kind of that's the Respire songwriting process in a nutshell. You rip off a band, and then the rest of your bandmates bail you out.
Yeah, like it could be the same riff, but you throw a violin on top of that, and then a trumpet. It's a whole new thing.
Yeah, I think we like to keep things interesting. I mean, honestly, when we first started the band, we were the first two records, I think, really were just us trying to create a cohesive sound, and I think we really did that on Denouement to a place where we were very happy with. And then we sort of kind of, threw the textbook out for Blackline, our new record. And we've got two singles out right now. And Cicatrice in particular has 4 parts that just kind of shift like at the flip of a coin. Like it's just, you're in one gear and then all of a sudden it's something completely different. And then again, it goes somewhere else. And I think the record is full of a lot of those kinds of drop of the hat changes. And so we were trying to, mostly I think primarily for our own interest and just, our own fun. But trying to, on this record especially, trying to really put in all these influences in a really tight package, that's very aggressive and makes its point fast. Whereas I think before we were a little bit more long form. I think Blackline is all the things Respire does in a much tighter, faster package.
That sounds very exciting. Yes, and folks, make sure you check out Respire. I mean, don't make the mistake of writing them off as some new post crossover band or whatever. Really, the whole discography I dove into, and it's just incredible. It really takes you on a journey. They even have an orchestral accompaniment album, Memorial, that pairs with Denouement. Now, tell us, how do you write those in tandem, or does Memorial come after Denouement?
I think the idea was we just took all the parts of Denouement, all the tracks that weren't guitars, vocals, bass, and drums, and we listened to them on their own. And we're like, hey, that would sound great in a movie. Why don't we get some sync royalties out of this?
There you go.
No, I kid.
No, that never happened.
Yeah, we've gotten no movie money. It's just everyone wants to put "This Will Destroy You" in their movies, and they're like, "Hey, post-rock song," and then it's like, "This will destroy you."
Yeah, they're like the go-to. What is it, Burial and the Presidio Banks, and the other one?
I mean, it's a great song, so I really can't be mad, but they could spread the money around a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's great to hear about Memorial because I mean, we put it out as something that like we really enjoyed, and we thought was special and valid as its own release. I mean, a label from Europe called Left Hand wanted to do like a special edition tape of Denouement, and they wanted to do something else to go with it. So we kind of took that opportunity as being like, okay, well, let's just put this out, not knowing at all if people would hate it or like it or just not get it. And we've pretty much gotten all of those responses online. There's been people that are like, wait, these are just the same songs. And we're like, dude, yeah, it's the same name. It's the same album cover. Like
the same order, for goodness sake. Like,
yeah. So yeah, we put it out. So it's nice to hear that that you like it because we like it.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to like? It's like it's great. It's different packaging of the same band. Like I'm studying for this big exam I got to take in December, right? I'm not necessarily going to throw on Denouement while I'm studying for that exam, but I can throw on Memorial, and I'm still getting my fix of Respire.
Nice, perfect.
Yeah.
I was so excited because I told Keith about you guys, a few months back, and I was like, oh yeah, I saw. I don't remember where the post was, but I was like, they have a new album coming out, and then I was like, wait, it's not coming out right away. I don't know. There's something going wrong with the label or something like that. I'm not sure what's going on. Can you guys talk about that a little bit? Like what happened with Holy Roar?
Yeah. Now, folks, to pull back the curtain a little bit, we were all booked and set to have Egin and Rohan on the show, and I think the news broke about Holy Roar the day before we were supposed to record or something. So thankfully, we're all here now getting to talk. So tell us a little, set the stage for us. Where were you when you heard? What steps did you have to take, etc.?
So we kind of right when Denouement came out, shortly after, Alex from Holy Roar reached out to us and was like, "Hey, I'm really interested. Your record's awesome. Let me know when you guys are ready to do something new." And then so we circle back, and at the time, we're not plugged into the UK heavy music scene, but from a distance, Holy Roar had a really, really amazing roster of bands. Bands like Svalbard and Rolo Tomasi and Palmer and Conjure and Pine, and a bunch of really awesome bands, and a really great reputation for putting out awesome, good music and doing it right. So we were pretty excited about joining the roster and being part of it. And then we announced that we were on Holy Roar, and it was the first thing we had announced in a while. We were pretty quiet on social media for several months, and that day there's a lot of excitement, and that day we got a message from one of our friends saying that there was going to be a statement made about Alex being an abuser, and it was something that they asked us not to talk about publicly until the statement was made. So we had kind of this weight around our necks where it's like, hey, we have to pretend that everything is okay and continue the promo cycle for this, but we know that the hammer's going to drop at any point. And right. We didn't know the details of the accusations. We just knew that something was going to come out, but we couldn't do anything about it until it happened. So what that did was, I don't want to in any way paint ourselves as the victims of the situation, because we're not. We're just, I guess, collateral damage. There are legitimate victims of the situation, and I think that the first thing we wanted to do was make sure that they were the people who, we had whose well-being and their safety and their I guess their path to justice was the thing that was going to be centered throughout our thought process.
Yes.
but we were in the situation where we needed to, I guess, make some decisions around how we wanted to approach this. So I guess the positive thing was by finding out a little bit in advance, we had a chance to talk amongst ourselves and figure out where we stood, and it was pretty clear where we stood. We wanted to stand on the side of the victims in this situation. So when it all went down, we had we started a group chat with a bunch of the bands on Holy Roar. We were pretty heartened because everyone was kind of on the same page. We demanded, I guess, accountability from Alex. We kind of stated our position where we were, and it kind of became clear that accountability was not going to come forward.
Did you guys hear from Alex at all?
We did not hear directly from Alex except when he released us from our contract. That was the only thing I heard. We heard directly from Alex. Everything else went through the employees of Holy Roar at the time, who were, they were part of our group chat. They were also collateral damage throughout the whole situation. I think that they were also pretty shocked to hear about these allegations. They took action pretty much right away as well. And I want to make sure that, they're not tarred by, the actions that led to the downfall of Holy Roar. Because I think, they're all pretty stand-up people who also did the right thing at, pretty significant personal expense.
Right. So where does Alex stand on this whole thing? Did he release a statement?
Yeah, he released a pretty garbage statement that is pretty typical sort of victim blaming. I will have my day in court sort of.
Oh.
But the whole thing was just a pretty big shit show. We in New Friends DIY and in any sort of community, you're always going to have to deal with unfortunate things like this. I mean, this wasn't the first time that somebody had told us that, a band that we were booking or a person that was coming to shows or whatever it might be, had been in an abusive situation or what have you. So this wasn't, anything new for us to deal with, but definitely the most kind of directly involved situation that we were in. So, we try to give him the at least our hope in the very beginning was that we could be a tool to, make him see that there was a way to save his label and there was a way to be better about this.
Right.
And just, do the right steps, to seek accountability, to, distance themselves from the label right away and do, the work that one needs to do to be better. So, we made the demands and we were trying to sort of, put a little pressure on him, and it didn't really go that way. So at that point, we just, just detonated the whole relationship and put the record on pause for that time being, out of respect.
Yeah. And I mean, you can kind of gauge, I don't know what happened, obviously, but I will say you can kind of gauge the situation by the person's response. I've seen responses where people take accountability, and I've seen responses where people double down and just say, yeah, like you said, I'll have my day in court. And yeah, it's an unfortunate situation for sure, but it's great that the bands can come together and the employees and make a decision, because, when everybody comes together like that and in favor of the victims, we prevent another Harvey Weinstein type situation where shit is going on for decades unchecked.
Yeah, I mean, it has been great to, at least, so Justine, who was one of the people that, really kind of ran Holy Roar, now has her own label with her husband called Churchwood Records, and she's put out this Svalbard record that was supposed to come out on Holy Roar. She's putting out our record that's was supposed to come out on Holy Roar, and Palm Readers as well. So it's been good to see, kind of the right people who had put all this, passionate work in actually not get dragged down as well and be able to emerge. so yeah, I mean, it's very shitty, but I feel like it could have been shittier. I mean, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any sort of further legal consequences for anybody or anything. So Holy Roar is definitely done. That's for sure.
So the new album is Blackline. It's coming out December 4th. Yes?
Yes.
Correct.
Now, let's talk about this album. Where you've stated it's a shorter, more concise Respire. It sounds like a exciting, punchy little package that I can't wait to hear. And I've heard the new singles, which I love. It's pure Respire. I'm looking forward to more. So if you're willing to share, what are some of the themes on Blackline? Now, in Denouement, we're talking about our journey through addiction and our climbing out of the darkness. So what's some of the stuff we're dealing with in Blackline? Like, if I was going to write an EP now, I don't even know what I'd write about, to be honest. The inspiration always comes, but what's some of the themes behind Blackline?
I guess the biggest developments post Denouement in 2017, 2018, really, it's a very weird position to be in when you're like trying to work on yourself and trying to be better, and everything around you seemingly is going to shit, politically, socially, culturally. So, when we were writing the music itself, like I said, it was, kind of aggressive off the bat, and there was still that same sort of kind of desperation and urgency, except it wasn't necessarily, I think, so self-directed. But yeah, I mean, Blackline is kind of taking a re-examining of recovery in a state where things all around us aren't recovering. So it is, kind of a direct reflection of where we are as people in this world that we're living in. That's, we wrote the lyrics and recorded the record right around the time that Australia was having their wild bushfires, in like, I don't know, 2018, 2019. So the backdrop really was this kind of, the whole world on fire, and the forest in California and BC, Donald Trump being president, and a whole country seemingly turning against itself, and minorities and immigrants like ourselves, trying to kind of re-examine our place in North America, and like, how do we move forward from this, and where do we move forward from this? So it's really kind of, it's a re-examining of all these kinds of relationships that we have with the place we're from and the people that we're around. And in the same way that, recovery is about believing in yourself, I think Blackline is more about believing in, your community and the people that you hold close, who have been there for you and who, you're there for. So yeah, it's kind of a look at where we are and what we think are the important things to kind of, get us through this and lift us up, which is community, each other, and, collective work, I guess. Rohan?
Yeah, I think it's essentially, to boil it down, the world is absolutely fucked. We're in the middle of a climate catastrophe. I'm someone, I work in the environmental sector. I'm absolutely terrified of the impacts of climate change. They're already happening. They're already really bad. Things are getting significantly worse. America, 45% or 50% of Americans, even if Trump doesn't win, have voted for a president who doesn't even really believe in climate change. Even if Biden wins, the Republicans are going to hold the Senate. America's probably not going to do anything about climate change for at least another couple of years. At the same time, we see the hate and the division being sowed. Not even just in the U.S. and Canada, but across the world. People are being othered based on their skin color, their sexual orientation, their gender identity, their religion, their race, and we're pretty sickened by it, we think that it's a little bit of hey, how do you function in this kind of world, and how do you get through it, and how do you how do you deal with the anxieties that come with surviving in a world that's kind of spiraling out of control, but also how can we get together, and how can we find how can we use art as a as a medium of resistance, and how can we come together, and what do we need to hold dear, and what do we need to cherish in these tough times, and how can we be the change that we want to see.
That's great. Yeah, and I think so many people feel all of those things. The world is just so fucked right now. I don't remember regular life anymore. Who would have predicted that any indoor gathering would end? Who would have predicted that live music would end? Live music. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's like one of the last natural highs. And I never imagined that it would be completely gone. And man, it's just one thing after another lately. And the COVID thing, everyone's stuck inside, tensions rising, and where I stand politically and what I expect from Congress and presidents and service members, like the old it's not enough anymore. It's not enough to be middle of the road. It's not enough to just, play to corporate interests. It's not enough. I want progressive candidates. I want real change. I want real significant things to happen. And things are so fucked right now that I'm hoping Joe Biden is president. And Joe Biden has essentially promised that nothing will change. And I'm not talking about all the damage that Trump has done. I'm just talking about the establishment. And that doesn't work for me. Like, I really want something different, but just the way things are so bad right now, like, we're hoping for Joe Biden. Like, that's what we want.
It is quite disheartening living in a world like that. And I think the point you brought up about COVID is I think I want to mention that we finished recording this in March. So everything that we wrote, and all the lyrics, and all the themes, and all the art, and the songs we're all pre-COVID. I think that everything that we wrote rings more true than ever.
Mm-hmm.
9 months later or 8 months later.
Yeah.
Which isn't a, very, like, it's not a prediction that we kind of obviously wanted to come true, but it's been a crazy year for sure. From from COVID to kind of the police reaction to protests for racial justice in America, and and it's right in our backyard too. I mean, there's these sorts of problems exist in Canada as well, and the police officers are gunning down and arresting an inordinate amount of racialized people in Canada and in Toronto, and we have more right-wing protesters and pseudo militia groups than ever in Canada. So it's a hard time for sure.
Yeah, we started this podcast. We recorded the first 4, I think, right before COVID hit. And then when we premiered it, everything was getting shut down. And we didn't want to do it virtually like this because, I don't know, I didn't think you would get as good an interview and that it just wouldn't be as personal. But we figured it out. We're making it work. And it's great. And oh, man, I've lost all sense of time. I think back to early episodes. I think back to March, April, and everything just changes so much month to month. It's crazy.
Absolutely. Who knows what 2021 will be? Probably more of the same, but hopefully not worse.
I know to always expect the unexpected now. Like, I'm just preparing myself. I'm like, be ready for anything. We don't know what's going to happen anymore.
I was going to say, I think that also speaks to kind of the general atmosphere, especially right now in the United States. Is a lot of people are just on edge, and people are, it's never been, I'm only 38. However, I've never seen more tribalized kind of groups of people, especially around political factions, where it's literally become like, I'm not talking to you anymore because you voted for this person. And the vast majority of times I'm seeing it, I'm like, yeah, but here's the thing is like, I understand your idea behind it. But at this point in time, I feel like we need other people as much as we can. We're going to get through things, but only through that unification and through that idea that like the good will eventually, hopefully soon, arise and they will be victorious. We've gotten to the point now where I see a lot of people that are so just everything is like I'm in a series of text threads with other teachers at my school, and even sometimes like you can feel it just through someone's words, where you see like something small happens in a classroom and the person is falling apart, and you're like, okay, I'm glad I'm on this thread. Look, we can talk you through this. This is not that big a deal. Just, the principal came and observed you. They might have been there because X, Y, and Z. They might have been there because the charter renewal is coming up. Like having, depending on other people is such an utmost important thing right now that I'm like, I hate when I see people like derive it. Like, look, I'm not talking to this person anymore. And I understand the idea behind it. Like, okay, your idea of politics is literally antithetical to every single thing I believe. I understand that, but at the same time, I think the reality of it is that the only way that we're going to be able to come back together is through finding some type of common ground that we can all agree on. And I think a great place to start, especially in the United States right now, is like talking about, okay, what is our ultimately, what do we want to accomplish and how can we do this? And the thing is that I think so many of us are so far removed from what the political system has really become and what it actually is. The idea of like, if you ever saw how a hot dog was made, you would never eat one. The same idea I think can be applied to politics if we truly understood how genuinely corrupt and how honestly depraved even some of the leaders that we look up to really are.
Mm-hmm.
They are really establishment people.
Yes.
And they toe the line because that's what they have to do to play the game. And I feel like, I don't know, the game is so rigged. It's hard to go ahead. I'm so sorry. Go.
No. I mean, I definitely agree, man. I think, the role of government, if anything, should be to make the lives of the citizenry better in whatever, just have people live a good life to what their sort of definition of good might be, and you have to help people. I mean, in Canada, whether it's healthcare or whatever, we have more social service programs, and you can't just keep cutting these things down and expect to have a healthy, happy, successful people in the long run. It's not going to work out. So I think you're right, and I think people, especially when the government isn't of any help, people have to, and they have been, forming new alliances and forming new sort of, grassroots ways of helping each other out. And I do think that it's going to be more of that ends up being helpful, and it's going to have to be people coming together on some sort of way, whether it's economically, whether it's, through education or whatever. We inevitably, people are going to have to reach across those divides and talk to each other. I mean, you live next to each other.
Yeah. I think about it in terms of like, so I'm a math teacher, and I always think about when my first couple years, the way I was taught to teach was by a series of what I used to call them the old guard, like the people that had started working there, 10, 15 years ago. And now I'm looking at it going like, I can't believe I taught like that, because essentially it was rule by iron fist. Kid makes a mistake, make an example of them. And what I've found in the last, decade or so of teaching is that the more that the kids are willing to, or the more that the kids actually like me and feel comfortable around me, the more that they're way more likely to ask for help when they're struggling with something, whether that's personal or academic. And it's one of these things that I feel like that can be applied to so many different venues in the world. If we were just a little bit more kind and just a little bit more understanding and accepting of what others are going through, I think we would all be, better off, because, that's what's that old Plato quote, the, be kind to others, for you know not what battles they fight. being kind right now is of the utmost importance, because if you think about this, essentially what the United States is going through right now is 50% of the population voted for one person and 50% of the population voted for the other person.
And that's a big problem.
In the end, someone's going to lose. So you're going to have a huge, well, you're not going to have a majority or minority. I mean, if it's 50-50, you're going to have a huge segment of the population that feels like their voices weren't heard. So whether that's Biden's camp or Trump's camp, you're going to have an enormous amount of people that feel like the system has failed them. And I think that being cognizant of like, okay, well, here's the idea. The system that we're functioning on right now is essentially non-functional. So
Yeah,
right.
People have lost their jobs. People have been stuck inside their homes. It's not, anybody's fault, but it is a fault of the general system that is unable to kind of put the needs of people first and be able to take care of people, right? I mean, and like that's it. There is so much loss and hurt going around, but I feel like everybody's just like very like it's easier to be able to point it to the other guy, but
yeah.
I mean everybody's hurting, like you said, right? Like I would hope that it would be times like this where things just affect millions of people at the same time, that we would kind of look around and be like, shit, we're on the same boat. But that's probably not how it's going to play out.
No,
but that's the fascist playbook, though, isn't it? Isn't it? Society is in upheaval. People are struggling. Why don't we all unite around an external enemy and blame the enemy? And that enemy could be immigrants or Muslims or people who think that police shouldn't kill unarmed Black and brown people. And it's the whole politics of division, and I think that it's hard to. And I get your point. You're talking about how we need to talk to each other and have those conversations and not kind of cut people off. But it's really hard to have keep those lines of communication open when half the country or a third of the country or whatever is living in a fantasy world, a bubble where they're not they're living in a different reality, and their truth is not the truth. It's they're living in an echo chamber, and their ecosystem is whatever your crazy uncle's posting on Facebook or Fox
Right.
News or whatever, where they're not they're getting a small fragment of what's actually going on.
Yeah, it's scary because it's split down the middle. We're living in the United States. Half of the country is supporting Donald Trump. That's half of the population, and that's scary. And people, this is the powers that be, or what? I mean, it's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that we're split down the middle, that we're fighting with each other, that we're blaming it on this president, or that we're blaming it on that candidate. And it's not a coincidence that the richest people in the country are getting richer during a pandemic, while so many regular people are out of work and dying. And I mean, it's just the whole system is fundamentally broken, and people are so brainwashed they can't see, like, no, we need to unite and work with each other. It's like, no, like poor people are conditioned to believe that, if they work hard enough, they're going to become a billionaire one day. And, poor people think that billionaires paying taxes is socialism and they're against it. And there's just so much fucking misinformation in this country. It's maddening.
Well, the thing about poor people in America is there's no poor people. There's only people who aren't rich yet. That's kind of that's the myth that everyone's been sold.
Oh, that's a huge old school, like this is one of those, like, this is nerdy. Keith, you probably cut this, but this is that whole idea of that, Horatio Alger, up from the bootstraps, you just pull yourself up and you're able to take care of yourself. You work hard. We live in a meritocracy. Therefore, if you work hard, your hard work will eventually be recognized and you'll be rewarded for it. But what you finally start to come and see is that, especially now that I get older, I see kids that I teach in an urban school, and it's like I have kids that come in day out and bust their ass. And the fact of the matter is our education system has failed them. Mm-hmm. They are 2 to 3 grades behind. I don't care how hard you work in each class. There is a certain amount of gaps that just will not be met. when I'm teaching kids certain, this is how you set up a certain proportion, or this is how you solve linear equations, and they can't divide properly. It's like, Jesus, we dropped the ball so fucking long ago with this. Like, this is we dropped the ball in third grade, and we've continued passing this dropped ball from grade to grade to grade without anybody ever intervening. And I think that that's the same idea that we've done now especially in the US, is where we've taken things that have been broken for years and years and kind of, as the saying goes, kick the can down the road. We've continually just gone, well, we'll deal with that at a later point. It's like, well, when are we going to finally address these issues? Because if we don't step up and say something, or we don't have movement towards like that progress, we're never going to see even incremental improvements.
And now vote has become a platitude. It's like, I want this specific change. Vote. Okay, but what the fuck are you going to do when I vote for you? You're going to tell me to vote for you again, and that's it. It's maddening.
It's unfortunate now, though, is that, and I think this is one of the things that I've been very cognizant of. This is that when I think about politics, mainly, I'm very nihilistic. I don't have a necessarily very positive view, and I've found myself holding my tongue in front of my children, and then when I have calmed down a little bit about something, having a rational conversation with them. Like, look, the only time I think, and this is, I literally am stealing this from like an old, I forget what, it was an episode of a TV show, but the idea was, never look into your neighbor's bowl unless you're making sure that they have enough. We've consistently done this thing where we look at others and say, they have more than me, or they have less than me, or, we have the same amount, but I deserve more. I worked harder for this. And I think that America has done this thing of, we have inequalities, except when it comes to opportunities. We have this opportunity where everyone has the chance to become rich or become educated. And what the reality is that it's not true. There's kids that, just because of their zip code, are forced to go to public schools in that area that are at best subpar. And it's really unfortunate. I remember doing my student teaching in a class in Philly, and the teacher was literally, and this is not an exaggeration, reading the newspaper. He handed out worksheets and sat down at his desk and read the daily news. And I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like, and then you can look up these people's salaries, and they're making $95,000, $100,000 a year. And it's like, you've been teaching this for 30 years. You should be a fucking expert at it. But people have become complacent with it and just gone, well, no one yells at me if I don't, if I hand out the work and they do this, I don't get in trouble. And it's like, then you got into teaching for the wrong reason. If you don't have a passion for this anymore, please hand the reins to someone that does.
Rohan and Egin, is there any side projects or upcoming things or anything that you want to specifically talk about in the last few minutes here?
Well, I mean, we've talked about New Friends Fest, which isn't happening. Rest in peace. No, I mean, we're actually busy working on our next record. So we've already got about a side worth of material for our next record. So we're as you can tell, Rohan isn't in Toronto right now. He's actually moving to Texas permanently to be with his partner / wife. So we're hoping to kind of just get our next record written in person and recorded before he leaves, so then we can kind of figure out how we're gonna keep things going internationally. But so we're keeping busy, just working on new stuff. There's no tours. There's nothing really happening. So.
Right.
I think we're holding out hope that we can play the songs on Black Line live before the next record's out. I think that's the dream.
Just tour 2 records at the same time, you'll be fine.
It's amazing, isn't it? So, Rohan, any closing words here?
I think that I want to come back to what you said a couple of minutes ago when you were talking about, how you tend to be nihilistic when you're thinking about politics. And I think that I think that's something that we're all tempted to feel as well. And I think that part of the I guess the mission statement, or the raison d'être of Black Line is that the world is spiraling, but it's a specific encouragement to not get sucked down that nihilist black hole, and to be angry, but also empowered to do something about it. So it's not a swan song, but it's a call to arms.
I love that. Yeah, it's really hard to keep up hope and just, I don't know, just because it's just like one thing after another, and it's like nothing's ever going to change. But we got to keep going, man.
Everything happens incrementally.
Yeah, we just got to keep going. Well, Rohan, Egin, I just want to say thanks again for coming on the show. I'm glad we got to connect. Well, the disappointing thing is, like, there's no shows. Like, I was looking forward to talking to all my favorite bands and then going to see them and being like, hey, what's up? But that's not going to happen anytime soon. However, I'm so glad that you both came on the show. This was a fucking awesome talk. And folks, check out the Respire discography. I mean, shit, it's a cinematic journey that you will not regret taking yourself on. And I absolutely love the music. And I just want to thank you guys both for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this was great. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Tommy?
I think now, and this is something I've been kind of like, I do a daily meditation, and this is the quote that came up today, and I just thought it was unbelievably lucky. Maybe it's not coincidence, maybe it's fate, I'm not sure. But the idea that if you keep in mind the things, if you put value in the things that you don't have control of, the less control you actually have. So when you put value in things like the outcome of an election, you put value in the things like what someone else is going to do or how are they going to respond to this, the less control you really have. And I think that the idea that when you are in that mindset of, I can do my best today, right now, it leads to so much more progress, because you feel accomplished in that, one, you've put aside things that don't necessarily involve you, or things that you don't have direct control over. And it also allows you to really kind of let go and live in that moment of, I appreciate what I have when I have it, because it's here now and I love it. I got mad the other day because my daughter's toys were all over the floor, and there was just like, we have a 1-year-old as well. So like I have twin 6-year-olds and a 1-year-old, and the 1-year-old's toys were everywhere, and I was constantly tripping over stuff, and I was in a rush to do something for work. And I thought to myself, in a year and a half or 2 years, these toys won't be strewn about. The baby won't be learning how to walk. I won't be changing diapers. And as much as I look at it and go, well, that'll be a nice change, I need to learn to appreciate these things when they're happening, because eventually they're not going to be there anymore. They will be. It's all transient. It's all going to stop. And we need to make sure that we appreciate what we have when we have it, so that we can relish those moments. Like if it's really bad right now, that's fine. Embrace that, and then recognize that when the good comes, it's going to feel that much better.
Wow. There you go. To quote Egin in a Respire interview that I read, if it's not emotionally exhausting, it's not worth it. And you know what? That's our philosophy.
There you go. Love it.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being on the show with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you have it, folks. Respire. They are super nice guys, well thought out, great conversations, amazing music. I mean, the whole discography is incredible. You've got Denouement, right? Gravity and Grace. Eternal Nothing is the biggest banger off that album, in my opinion. But man, all of it is so good.
They're really good. I always think, like, for people that haven't heard them and they're like, I wonder what they sound like. It's You and I meets Godspeed You Black Emperor. That's my best way of explaining it. It's like really good, heavy, emotive kind of stuff, but at the same time, orchestral. Like they have and it's not orchestral for the sake of like, oh, we have a bunch of violins and we have, some brass section. Like, no, it's really, really thought out. It's well planned, and it's done in a way that's not over the top. Like, there's a lot of times when I listen to Godspeed and I'm like, holy shit, this is 15 minutes of like this person's shouting in like Creole. Like when are they going to get to the fucking music? Like, get to the part that's awesome. I know that, but like they do it in such a way that it's like everything is, I mean, their songs they're tight, but there's some of them that are like 7.5, 8 minutes long, and it does not feel like that.
Right. And with these bands that blend different genres, sometimes they just don't know how to do it. Like it'll be like, okay, we're a metal song. Okay, now we're an emo song out of nowhere.
Yeah.
There's no flow to it, but Respire have got it down.
And I think it's really cool is like that the fact that like these guys are all like they're all from different parts, not even different parts. They're all from, they're from Canada now, but they're all from different parts of the world. So they bring their own kind of like touch to everything, and it's really just a great thing to hear when you hear these backstories of like, oh, actually, I grew up here and then I moved here, and like, I lived in Japan. Really? Jesus. Like that's like one of the most difficult languages to learn, and it's like, no, I just picked it up. No, I speak it. And also I speak English without an accent at all. Like, holy shit. Like that's always mind blowing to me. And then the fact is like, when you hear bands like this, they got me because of that live video, New Friends Fest.
Yes.
There's a live video from New Friends Fest. If you have not looked it up, please look it up. It is unbelievable. And they have the people on stage. So they have a violin, a viola player. They have 2 trumpet players, 2 guitar players, a bass player, a drummer. Like it is a full stage, and it is awesome. It is unbelievable. Like the sound that they get out of it. And it's, like when you first hear it, you're like, wow, this is really like smartly done. And then it just goes into a full on black metal part. Like it's really awesome. Like it's like, very well done.
And I like that they're just doing their own thing. They have their band, they have the New Friends DIY, they're putting on their own shows, from somebody who has always felt on the outside. I like to see when people are doing that. They're just doing their own thing, they're building their own thing. And that's what you got to do, man. Because no one's going to come find you. No one's going to go hand it to you.
Yeah.
You just got to do it.
And, the fact that like, it's really great that guys like, Egin are also, not only involved in musical projects like this, but, they're involved in things like they want to do better in terms of like the society's, legal structure. So they're actually going and doing something about it and going to law school. It's just phenomenal that they're able to do these things.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. So, well, what else you got coming up? You going to sit in the car for the rest of the day?
No. So my next move on this is I have to finish some lesson plans for the week we return, so that November 30th week. Other than that, we don't have anything to do. We're going to go actually early tomorrow morning, probably like around 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and we're going to go get our Christmas tree. And when we get the Christmas tree, because we go out and like find like a real one and like cut it down, because we're out in the middle of nowhere here.
Yes.
They have these huge tree farms, so we'll go out and cut it down and then make our way back to Fusterville.
Nice. Yeah, we're gonna get a tree tomorrow. I think I'm gonna skip Thanksgiving next year.
Yeah,
because Thanksgiving and Christmas are back to back. So I think we'll do a Thanksgiving here in New York, and I'll just go home for Christmas.
I think that's a great idea, because like you're kind of like mixing both. And here's the other thing: people go crazy about how good Thanksgiving is. I don't like Thanksgiving dinner anyway. Like,
it's not good.
It's not good. It's not a good.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do. And just in case anyone from my family happens to hear this, which I don't think they won't, it has nothing to do with the cooking. It's just the food.
Yeah, that mixture of food is
whatever.
Not good. If someone said, "Do you want Thanksgiving dinner or do you want Popeyes?" I'd be like, "Fucking Popeyes every day of the week. Are you out of your mind?" Like, that's the dumbest thing in the world. Or like, do you want pizza or do you want Thanksgiving dinner? Yeah, I'm picking pizza. Like it's turkey and mashed potatoes. Like, ugh.
I remember being a kid and thinking, oh, rich people probably have Thanksgiving dinner every day. Like I remember thinking it was this like special thing, but it's not.
No, it's not. Like I don't ever nowhere ever in my life have I been like, wow, I could really go for some turkey. Like, like it's just not a good. Like I will go and get a turkey hoagie. Like I'll go to Primo's and get a turkey Diablo. I'll do that.
Is so good
any day of the week. But if someone said, hey, you want a real roasted turkey? No. I don't fucking want that. Like, it's fucking gross. It's like the only way I eat turkey is if I mash it with all the other shit together. Like I just put a ton of gravy and like the green bean casserole and all the other stuff. And it's like I don't like that meal as it like if I had to pick like a meal like in terms of holiday meals, Thanksgiving is 100% dead last on my list. I will pick hamburgers and hot dogs for 4th of July over Thanksgiving dinner every fucking day of the week. Like, yeah, I like ham at Christmas. Ham is really good. I like ham and raisin sauce. I'll eat that. Like, but everything else.
Ham and raisin sauce?
Yeah, dude. You seem disappointed in that.
No, you know what? I'm honestly just trying to keep my meat consumption to chicken, and that's it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I don't know, man. I just feel bad eating a steak or bigger animals. I'm like trying. I'm not saying. I'm trying to wean myself off. I would like to imagine that I could become pescatarian one day or something. So I'm like starting to will myself into thinking it.
I hate fish so much.
Yeah, it's not my favorite.
My wife is a big she likes tuna fish sandwich. Like she'll make like tuna on rye.
Oh, forget that. No.
When she makes it in the kitchen, it literally in my head I'm going like it smells like the bottom of a garbage can. Like,
is this a canned tuna?
Yes.
Oh,
it smells like cat food. Like,
yes.
I'm not fucking eating this. Like, and it's like it stinks the whole room up. And on top of that, and she's like, yeah, but it doesn't taste like that when you eat it. I'm like, all right, so let me take a bite. And it's like she puts so much other stuff in it, like mayo, salt, pepper, chopped celery, chopped onions. And I'm like, okay, so that's all I taste is the onion and the celery. I don't even taste it. And she's like, yeah, but it's a good source of protein. I'm like, yeah, so is a ton of other shit. Like, I don't want to fucking eat this stuff. It's so gross. It smells so bad. I can't get the smell alone is enough to turn me on it. Like,
I forgot canned tuna was even a thing until right now. My older brother used to eat that when we were really young, and I was really grossed out by it.
I can't. Dude, when I used to work at the first school I ever worked at, I worked with a guy that was his lunch. He was like a bodybuilder, and he used to do like these protein packed like lunches in the middle of the day, and he would eat like 4 times a day when we were at work. He would just eat 3 cans of tuna. He would just take the cans of tuna, open them up, and then just dump them into like a Tupperware container and eat the tuna. And I'm like, how do you do that? He's like, hey man, if you want to put on mass. I'm like, ugh, no, I don't. Not that bad. Look at how fucking
people are so messed up.
So gross, dude.
That's just gross.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we hope you enjoyed our conversation with Respire, and we hope that you will continue to listen to us. We've been getting more and more great feedback, messages from folks, a lot of new people following us, and we want that to continue because, shit, it feels good.
It does feel good. And people, I've seen a couple of comments of like, hey, these guys have good chemistry. It's like, well, we've only known each other for 2 decades, so.
We better have good chemistry by now, or we're in big trouble.
We're in deep shit. We're just wasting our time.
No, I was telling Romy last night, everything I've done in my life, creative-wise, either it didn't work out, or I'm forcing myself to do it and I don't enjoy it, or something to that effect. And this podcast, I knew from the beginning somehow that it was going to work. I knew that we were going to be the 2 people to do this. I didn't have anybody else in mind to do it with. And even though it's hard, even though sometimes we're really tired and we just don't feel like doing it, I have this unbelievable drive to keep pushing forward. And that's why I know that it's good and that we have to keep doing it.
That's why I'm sitting in the front seat of a fucking minivan right now, bro. Like, that's the way this shit works. Like, because we actually like what we're doing, and we really, I think the biggest thing is like, we think there's so many bands out there that we want to talk to and spend time with and learn about. And then there's other bands, like, especially like Respire, like, you might not have heard of them, but we want to make sure people hear about this music, because there's so much great stuff happening out there that it just, how often do you get into a record and you go and you look it up and you're like, 2017? Fuck, how did I miss this? Like,
Exactly.
I missed, it was only because of you. I missed Holy Fawn completely until you were like, you should check this band out. And I was like, how did this slip past me? Like, and the thing is because there's so much great music out there, and there's so many different avenues to get it from and different places to look at, that sometimes really, really great bands that are doing awesome things just slip through the cracks. And if we can even expose a couple people to some cool shit, I'm into it.
Yeah, I would actively seek that stuff out. This website, Arctic Drones, used to post a big list of the best post-rock of the year, and that's where I would find most of the stuff. But I don't know if I don't think that site is a thing anymore.
Oh.
So I have to dig a little deeper. But calling back to our first segment, I might not find the connection I'm looking for in the car when I'm playing music. However, we have this podcast to scratch that itch, and I just have to direct that energy in the right place and not get negative where there's no place for it. So that's my lesson learned for this week.
100%. I love it. I absolutely love it, because it's one of those things where you spend a time building that playlist, and you're thinking about how one song leads into the next, or how this one is going to kind of like set the tone for something coming up. And it's like, oh, I went a little heavy on this. Let's go a little bit lighter on the next one. And then what you get is complete indifference. And you're like, what the you're so mad. You're just like, God damn it. I spent time on this.
Yeah. And that's okay. That's okay. We're not all going to have the same taste. So listen, write us, email us, follow us. We'll share your reviews on the air. We'll share your stories on the air. You're a part of this too.
Yeah.
So thanks everybody for listening. And until next time.